Good afternoon and welcome to AM Virtual. I'm Gavin Ruddick, Brand Ambassador for Secret Service, and today we're going to be looking at the future of after-sales, unlocking the potential from the largest park in UK history. Our retailers will face many challenges throughout 2021, but for after-sales I've broken these down specifically, looking at the vital few. Firstly, to look at the market opportunity and the impact the reduction of 0 to 3 year vehicle servicing will have on our retailers over the coming years. And then to understand the potential that now exists in Segment 2 and Segment 3 of our 0 to 10 year vehicle park. Once we understand that potential, we must then ensure we have the workshop capacity. So our second challenge will be to ensure we have the capacity to unlock the new potential of Segment 2 and Segment 3. Once done, we need to also look at how we can pivot our after-sales operating model. An operating model that hasn't really changed over the last 15 to 20 years. We now have the potential to restructure our workshop operations and use technology to allow us to transact with more customers without increasing fixed cost any further. Let's take these one at a time. Firstly, as we look at our market opportunity, we can see a potential £600 million reduction in 0 to 3 year vehicle servicing over the next 2 years as a result of the 35 to 40% drop in new car sales over the last 2 years. This has also, however, grown Segment 2 and Segment 3 to the largest levels they've ever been. Those levels are now equal to Segment 1 over the last 4 to 5 years, which has been the lifeblood of our workshops. The challenge, therefore, is our independent sector owns 64% of that market share. They're more active in Segment 2 and Segment 3 than our after-sales franchise network, and their potential to retain up to 71% over the next 2 years as this park ages is increasing. So we know Segment 2 and Segment 3 have grown to larger levels than they've been before. The independent sector own the space today, and the after-sales aftermarket spend in 2022 could reach 28 billion. It's no surprise when we look at our retention performance to understand that we retain only 44% of Segment 2 and 24% of Segment 3. In essence, we lose more than we retain. We lose retention in this area because our consumers are conditioned by independent and fast fit servicing and lead generation investment up to £10 million a year, conditioning our consumers that franchise after-sales servicing is expensive. Not only are our consumers not shopping and looking for us for this servicing requirement, we don't know which of our customers are fishing around and when they're going to leave us. If we look at the Book My Garage VRN lookups for the whole of 2020, it's no surprise, therefore, that 75% of all inquiries were for vehicles in Segment 2 and Segment 3. So our first challenge is to understand more of our market opportunity, recognise the potential loss to our workshops for Segment 1, but truly understand the Segment 2 and 3 potential once we challenge the independent sector to take market share. The next challenge we face, the second aspect of our vital few, is to understand our workshop capacity. Appreciating some redundancies have made post-furlough this year, it's important that we now calculate that we do have the capacity to unlock the potential from Segment 2 and Segment 3. If you're unsure how to calculate your specific capacity for the coming year, visit the Secret Service website where you can gain access to a park calculator that will allow you to calculate whether you have the potential to grow your after-sales business. Understanding the potential that exists, and then that you have the capacity to unlock that potential, the third aspect is understanding how we pivot our after-sales operating model in 2 specific areas. Firstly, deconstructing our workshop structure and separating our technicians into 2 teams, specifically looking at an express lane or fast lane servicing option that allows us to transact with customers whilst they wait and carry out first and second servicing on their vehicles within an hour, freeing up vital resources like courtesy cars for customers in Segment 2 and Segment 3 whose vehicles require more additional work. The second aspect of this is to connect our senior and master technicians with the greater use of connected vehicle data and technology, ensuring that when customers' vehicles arrive on site, we have greater intelligence about what the problem may be and improve the time it takes to repair their vehicles. Often not even requiring their vehicles on site, utilising software updates and the many aspects that are available through connected car data to improve the predictability when we see those vehicles. So there are vital few challenges. We understand more about our market opportunity, the impact of Segment 1 servicing reduction, the true potential of Segment 2 and Segment 3. We use that to ensure we can then calculate, we can grow our performance by having the right capacity, the right retail capacity to grow. And the third aspect is using a transition of our business model to restructure our workshops and then use software innovation to allow us to see more customer transactions without forcing up fixed costs further. So to summarise on our vital few challenges for 2021, we understand first of all the impact in reduction of 0 to 3 year vehicle servicing over the coming years, the potential that exists in Segment 2 and 3, and that our independent sector have this shown up today taking more market share than we do, predicted to reach 71% of aftermarket spend. Our retention performance confirms this. And if we look at the statistics from Book My Garage, 75% of all VRM lookups throughout 2020 were for Segment 2 and Segment 3 vehicles. Our consumers are not considering us, and we don't know which ones are about to leave us and when. So once we understand how to lock the potential of Segment 2 and Segment 3, we can only release this if we have the right workshop capacity to grow. Understanding we have the right workshop capacity to grow, we need to transform our operating model and then use software and innovation to allow us to transact with more customers without increasing our fixed cost. But what does this mean to you? If we look at an individual 10 to 12 bay retailer across the UK, an increase in 20% parc penetration in Segment 2 and Segment 3, whilst ambitious, could be £265,000 turnover increase in 1 calendar year. For a division or small group of 10 businesses, is £2.6 million increase in revenue. So let's make 2021 the year we level the playing field with the independents. Use Secret Service to drive in retail bookings across Segment 2 and Segment 3 and understand which of our customers are going to leave us and when. And all of this based on a 200% return investment model at a time when every single one of your investments is absolutely critical. So allow Secret Service to work with you and improve your after-sales contribution throughout 2021, improving overhead absorption performance and underpinning dealership return on sales at a critical time for our sector. Thank you. So you've heard this afternoon how Secret Service powered by Book My Garage will help AM100 retailers in 2021 take market share from independents and fast fits. In addition, this afternoon you'll hear from 2 of our Secret Service partners. Firstly, from Rachel Prasher, CEO of Haymarket, and Robert Forrester, CEO of Virtue Motors. Virtue Motors have been a partner of Secret Service over the last year and have just achieved in 1 year a 400% return on their investment. Let's hear from both of them now. Hi Rachel, good afternoon and thanks for joining us today. So the new car market has been nothing short of tumultuous during 2020 and What Car has been monitoring customer behaviour on a weekly basis since April. So what do the indicators say about the next 6 to 12 months?
So yeah, as you say, What Car's been recording consumer behaviour over the last, 10 months now. We use a survey device on the website and that allows us to capture consumer sentiment. And some of those questions have been consistent over that 10-month time frame, and then we've added different questions in as has been required as the situation has changed. But certainly one of the things that we have been monitoring on an ongoing basis is consumer sentiment around buying timeframes, which has provided us with this really interesting view of consumer confidence, I guess, over that time frame. And just to give some context, we have between 8,000 and 10,000 respondents to that survey a week, so it's a really robust survey. And the questions that have been continual throughout have pretty consistent answering. So again, I'm not a statistician or a researcher, but certainly that is reassuring to get that consistency, that you can be very confident in the questions that have been, or in the answers that have been given to those questions. So certainly, in terms of how it provides an indicator for us and for the market for the next 6 to 12 months. I think one of the things that we're looking at most closely, as I said, is timeframes, and in particular, how long it is before people plan to buy a new car. And the closest sort of correlation that we can see is this relationship between lockdown strengthening and buying windows. And I mean, it's not groundbreaking particularly, and I guess it's probably what you would have imagined seeing, but essentially, as soon as a lockdown comes in or tighter measures are introduced, then the timeframe for buying is extended. What is interesting or is encouraging, I think, though, is that as soon as those measures begin to ease, then that buying window comes forward really, really quickly. So, for example, one of the timeframes that we talk about are planning to buy in the next 4 weeks, and then we have within the next 3 months, 6 months, and then longer. So we saw it as we came out of that initial lockdown, and we saw it again in the winter. When announcements are made around that lockdown period ending, then there is just a huge spike around the number of people who say that they're going to buy within the next 4 weeks. I think initially we had a statement which said as soon as coronavirus is over, which now feels a rather optimistic statement, but we ran that for the first few months. But essentially it's saying the same thing. It's saying that when this situation changes, I am going to make a purchase. And then there are lots of obviously other indicators that we look at to judge consumer confidence, and the other sort of biggie for us really, I guess, is the amount of activity going on, or the amount of traffic around what cars new car reviews. That has always been a pretty good bellwether for consumer buying behaviour. We have, I mean, what car's been online for 20 years now, but we've always kind of assumed a time frame of around 12 weeks. In terms of things that are happening at this point, 12 weeks earlier, are likely to then play out in the new car buying market. So again, it gives us a really good sense of consumer confidence. And when we then map that, as we have been doing since the start of the pandemic, in terms of activity around new car reviews, and then what happens in the market a few months later, that correlation is intact, albeit it's had some really weird skews, as you can imagine, over the last 10 months.
The What Car New Buying platform has firmly established itself this year, with most of AM Top 20 joining you. What have been the key ingredients to that success?
We relaunched What Car in September 2018, and we introduced this new car buying platform then. So it's just over 2 years old, and has been a really exciting product for us, and challenging as well. You know, it's a completely new area of the market for us. I've mentioned new car reviews already. That's traditionally where What Car has played, in that review space. So extending the consumer journey to include lead gen for new car dealers is a very obvious customer step for us. It's a very obvious extension of what we do, but it isn't an area that we have any heritage in and any experience of. So it's been a massive learning curve for us. But actually, the last 10 months have been very, very strong for What Car New Car Buying. We've grown our dealer base considerably. We doubled it through the lockdown period, and we've retained most of those dealers on the platform since we returned to a pay model, although we're about to obviously go into a free model again because we don't charge during lockdown. And that's been really exciting. And consequently, the number of leads has also been, well, it's more than doubled. I think it was running at 3 times through the summer this year on the previous year, which is just incredible. So I would hope that we'll repeat that success this year. I think your original question was, what's been the key to our success there? I think it is understanding our consumer. You know, we've spent a huge amount of time understanding what our audience are coming to What Car to do and what they're trying to achieve. And like I said, it's giving them new car deals is such a natural extension of their research journey. We know that the majority of car buying journeys now take place online, or they begin online. I don't think they're fulfilled online. I think the dealer networks are absolutely essential in the final parts of that journey, and and dotted throughout in those interactions when people are making decisions.
And finally, you talk about partnership ethos and adding true value, which brings me on to the reason we're talking today. How are What Car and Secret Service, powered by Book My Garage, going to work together?
Yeah, the idea of putting brilliant service plans in front of What Car consumers, primarily from franchised dealers, is just such an obvious extension of that research process. We know increasingly when people are buying new cars, they're looking to bake in service plans to those deals. And if they haven't done it at the point of purchase, invariably they are looking to maintain a relationship with a franchise dealer in some shape or form. So being able to provide them with, brilliant packages through Book My Garage and more specifically through the Secret Service product, it just aligns so well with What Car's brand values and indeed with what the What Car audience are looking to do. And you'll see that roll out. We're in trial stage on the site at the moment, so we just have the product kind of almost deployed in the background as we begin to launch more and more features over the next few months that will help to drive consumers to the Secret Service product and to grow awareness of the Secret Service product on What Car. Clearly there is, it's an interesting commercial play for us as well. We have a great relationship with Karen and Jessica and the team at Book My Garage. They are hugely experienced in this market. Arguably, they have a lot more experience with franchise dealers than we do. We're still only a couple of years into this journey. So working with partners like that is really important to us. It's a fantastic, fast-growing market overall. There are a number of players in the market, and it is a really exciting, I think for consumers, a really exciting way now to book servicing, MOTs, and increasingly other products like repairs as well, which will begin to come online through Book My Garage and Secret Service. So for us, we love working with great partners. We spend a lot of time choosing the right ones to work with. They've got to align with What Car's brand values. The relationship has got to work well for us as well. You've got to have the right mindset. I talked about that agile mindset. That's really, really important. This idea of continuous learning is critical to all of our partnerships. We don't like just signing on the dotted line and deploying something and then walking away and not really thinking about how we can get more out of it. I don't think that works for our consumers, and it doesn't work for us as a commercial business. So we're really, really happy with the work that we've been doing so far, and watch this space for what's to come.
Good afternoon, Robert, and welcome. So new car market registrations are forecast to close around 35% down, combining 2019 and 2020 performance. Could you give us your outlook for 2021 and what we can expect to see?
This is a very difficult question in terms of outlook for 2021. There are some material considerations which we have very little visibility on, particularly around the Brexit negotiations and whether there is going to be a deal or no deal, full stop. Clearly, in a no deal scenario, with tariffs in place and with potential weakness on sterling in the currency markets, the new car market is likely to be pretty difficult. However, as we get through 2021, even in a no-deal scenario, I still think we'd be pretty optimistic that some sort of arrangement would come into place. And actually, I would still envisage a deal being done before the end of the year in any respect. The outlook, I think, is also complicated by the supply of electric vehicles and the need to hit the emissions targets. And certainly we've seen some dislocation in some brands in December from that. So I expect to see a volatile environment, probably, and one that will have to work very closely with the manufacturers to align supply and demand and to try and drive as much new car business as we possibly can. There is always scope in a dealership to improve its market share if it just does the sales process correctly and if we get our marketing right. So we'll just have to take share off our competitors.
The current downturn is a stark contrast to the previous period, yet those years of sales success mean that segment 2 and 3 of the 0 to 10 year vehicle park are now the largest they've ever been. How much of a challenge is workshop capacity and operational structure to growing volume in these two segments?
The growth of the older vehicle park is clearly a very beneficial thing for franchise dealers, and we've seen great success in penetrating that market in recent years, and I expect that to continue. We're clearly going to have a gap in the one-year-old car servicing market, April and May, for obvious reasons. But we will continue to focus on the older car segments. Workshop capacity in our business, certainly, I don't think is going to be an issue. I think we've got the ability to flex resource, extend opening hours where necessary, and we will be putting some more ramp capacity in where we think that is necessary. And I think more of a challenge in terms of capacity comes not from growth of segment 2 and 3, but actually the closure of dealerships. There's a substantial number of dealerships being closed, in the process of being closed, and I think that will put pressure in local areas on after-sales capacity. So I think we're set. We've got a plan as to how we deal with that capacity. I also think there'll be a balance across the business. I expect to see warranty work coming through in the under 3-year-old car park. So I think we'll be busy next year on after sales, but I don't see major constraints on workshop capacity.
Fast fits and independent workshops still dominate, controlling around 70% of market share. However, as we know, motorists of post-warranty vehicles are being conditioned to ignore franchise dealers. So what are the key challenges to reversing that?
I actually think the franchise dealers are starting to win the battle for a number of reasons with regard to penetration of the older car market in terms of servicing. And I think this probably is being aided by the complexity of modern vehicles, which are now coming into the older car park. More connectivity, more autonomous driving capability, and different powertrains. The rise of increased hybrids, not so much electric vehicles in the 3+ park, clearly, but that will come. And that complexity means that franchise dealers have an inherent advantage in terms of the training of the technicians, the links to the manufacturers in terms of diagnostics, etc. So I think franchise dealers are going to pick up market share naturally in that environment. So I think having service plans backed up by a very good internet strategy to make sure we're visible to customers on the internet if they're looking for service work, and to sell the benefits of franchise dealers over the independent aftermarket. Our job as franchise dealers is to put the independent aftermarket out of business, and I think both structurally and organisationally we're in a good place to take share in the next few years.
Finally, OEM franchise partners have repeatedly tried to grab an ever larger slice of the older car park with 4+ style service plans. It's done a job, but it's arguably one-dimensional in its message, and it doesn't allow you to reach and convert other makes and models into your workshops. Will success in grabbing a larger slice of the market only truly come if it's driven by the dealers?
I think it's a more complicated situation than just dealerships doing their own thing and trying to get market share in the older car market. I actually think manufacturers do have a role to play. I'm not averse to the strategies around incentivising customers with different things. I actually am very keen. Manufacturer service plans are a good thing. They tie people in. I think they've got credibility, so that's great. The differential pricing in older cars, some stimulated by manufacturers with some of the marketing that they do, I think is good for retention. However, the dealer also has a role to play to back the manufacturer up, to support the schemes that are put in place, assuming that they are sensible and make financial sense, of course, and also to make sure that there's this focus on service plans, be it their own service plans or the manufacturer's service plans. So I don't see franchise dealers operating in a vacuum outside of the manufacturers. The success of the auto sector in the franchise sector is very dependent on manufacturers and retailers working together. And I think if we start dividing the world up, we're going to be in for a very torrid time. We have to be joined absolutely at the hip in terms of our strategies, because we're dealing with one customer, and they are a customer both of the retailer and of the manufacturer. We are a joint responsibility, and we've got to go with a very consistent message, I believe, and to be delivering great service, because fundamentally we will get retained customer retention if the retailer wows the customer with the experience, provides value for money, and their customer has therefore customer loyalty.
Robert, thank you very much for your time, and thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm now joined for the live Q&A by Karen Rotberg and Gavin Ruddock, who you've just been watching earlier. There is still time to post some questions. I think we've got probably about 10 minutes for this Q&A session. So please tap away if you want to put in a link to Gavin. We've got a few that have come in already, so we'll start with this one. The independent sector continues to grow and is set to have 70% of all UK aftermarket spend by 2022. How realistic is it for the franchise sector to win back market share and buck the trend? Gavin, do you want to?
Yeah, no problem. I think by taking action now, Tim, and obviously partnering with Secret Service, as you just seen me presenting on, retailers can take back market share at a time when the 0 to 3 year vehicle park has reduced dramatically. So ultimately, opportunity is now. Consumers are at home, retailing online, as we know. They need to check value, certainly at this time more so than ever. And whilst our OEM partners are coming out with a lot of brand campaigns, these can be perceived sometimes as sort of one-dimensional. So consumers have a need to self-serve, be in control of their own journey and their own requirements. So much so that December saw our platform reach 4 million users, and January is already set to be the highest month of bookings on record. So the time is now to take back market share and compete head on with independents and bring our retailers back up to speed with the segment 2 and 3 vehicles that are out there, Tim.
Okay, thank you. Got another question come in about what can dealers implement or change to ensure they continue to retain their customers as well as attract the new ones they need?
Yeah, well, I'm going to answer this in 2 ways, Tim. Initially, franchise retailers, along with our brand partners, have already increased focus on connected vehicle engagement. So ensuring that customers who pick up new and used vehicles are connected through the connected apps that are available. The work has been ongoing on that for some time now, and raising the priority of connecting customers with this information. In addition to, as we know, service and maintenance plans, which are naturally supporting retention of vehicles, mainly under the first 2 years of warranty. However, in order to impact after-sales performance this year in 2021, retailers need to unlock the market opportunity that is not connected to them at the minute. And based on national retention figures, as we can see, our current partners' booking performance is about 75% conquest, and it's not recognised on their marketing record. So connected vehicle and focus on connected car is doing a good job of locking in 0 to 2 customers. But now, in order to access in 2021 and take market share right now, consumers need to partner with us so we can gain access for them to this really credible market share.
Okay, thanks for that, Gavin. Somebody else has made the point, is it the fact that higher costs in operating a franchised after-sales operation make it impossible to compete with independents?
Well, Tim, I'd say that's actually not the case. Whilst franchise retailers clearly do have higher operating costs, we've seen the independents achieving similar, and in some cases, higher final invoice values by simplifying the maintenance schedule and adding additional items that we often class as the sort of main service schedule. They add them onto what is, in essence, their version of a vehicle health check, so that independents streamline their main initial servicing offer, but their final invoices are as high, if not higher, than some of our main retailers. So allowing a streamlined but compelling inspection schedule, retailers have the potential now to use the video innovation that we know and most of our AM100 retailers use in order to unlock additional after-sales profitability and deliver a great operating margin from the work that they're seeing in. There's been an awful lot of facility investment in our retail network. So clearly, yes, we do have higher operating costs, but we can't save ourselves to success. So the only real way to unlock the potential is to increase market share, take market share back from independents. And as I said, as the question said, although we do have higher operating costs, there's still a real potential with capacity today to take market share that will allow us to underpin that investment.
I mean, interested on
can
that.
I just interrupt
Sorry,
there for
Karen.
a moment?
Yep.
Sorry, I was just going to say as well, because we're driving 75% of the bookings that we're getting are from segments 2 and 3. One of the big groups that we achieved over 406% ROI during the whole of 2020 for, they've got 122 sites, I think, with us now. Typically, we achieved a 13% higher final invoice value than they're getting from their segment 1 work. So, it is, whilst you might be levelling the playing field to enable franchise to compete with the local independents because they're offering the same service schedules. We're not discounting their service schedules, we're offering the same service schedules, so enabling them to compete on the same playing field, but then using See It Now and other products to do the vehicle health check, to do the advisories, is bringing that 13% higher final invoice values than they normally get in the service department. So it's a myth that we're driving prices down or getting cheaper work into the workshop. Actually, we're getting profitable work into the workshops. Okay. Sorry, I did say I wasn't going to speak, Gavin, but I'm like, can't help myself.
and I mean, with that, Karen, that puts an onus on the service reception being particularly effective at achieving that that additional work, isn't it? I guess, because if a customer's there and the health check has identified new opportunities, I guess it's a role for the franchise dealership to then sell the convenience as well and the expertise, as well as it just being about cost. That while the car's in, you may as well get this done because X, Y, and Z look like they need doing.
Tim,
Absolutely.
sorry. I don't mind taking this one, Karen. I think it's a great point in terms of what pressure does this put on the front of house teams to convert additional work whilst the vehicle's in. One of the things that I found astonishing when I first started partnering with Karen and the team was the level of final invoice values that the independents are achieving was significant. It was, having spent 15 years looking at franchise retailers' final invoices, as you know, I was really surprised at the level of invoices that they were achieving. So if you look at the training and expertise and investment that's gone into retailers' front of house teams, but by the very nature, we're in the pound seats in terms of converting the additional work, as Karen said, just by using video technology and some of the providers' solutions that are out there today, allowing customers to authorize additional work online with the video. So I think we've come a long way in terms of competing head on with independents, based on the investments that we've already made in video technology and vehicle health check technology that can allow customers to self-serve. So they can self-serve their booking straight into diaries of our partners, retailers. And then once our technicians have carried out the video, consumers can self-serve their authority on what they can see really transparently is work that requires immediate attention. So your question's a great question around, what pressure does it put on the front of house teams? But I don't, using innovation and technology, I don't think it does. I think we're in a great place to take advantage of it.
Do you think having that trend of customers wanting to self-serve and do the bookings online is only going to grow? I mean, it strikes me for quite a few years ago, there were a lot of franchise dealers who claimed that customers could book online, but effectively it was filling in a form which then got sent to the dealership. The dealership would then contact them to make the booking. We're in a kind of modern age now where people expect to book hotels and flights and whatever online, and actually a service such as this, the convenience of being able to do that and know that you have secured a booking, you know how much the price is, surely that's only going to just build and build for the consumer.
I think it is, Tim. Yeah.
I'd just like to add one point into that as well, just before you come back to the main answer to that. I think one of the exciting innovations that we did during lockdown, the first lockdown, was that as well as booking a slot directly available, so you could see a week ahead of you or the month ahead of you which slots are available and go ahead from the consumer and go ahead and book a specific slot. And that's a great customer journey to be able to do that. But at the same time, with the innovation that we did was to say, okay, well, we got a slot that's come available this afternoon that was a cancellation. So we instantly discounted that slot to make sure we were going to fill it and it wasn't going to remain empty. And I think that was one of the exciting innovations that we did last year.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Tim. Yes, just to add to Karen's point, your main question, I think, is multifaceted, isn't it? Ultimately, the consumers that just want to book their service in MOT want to do that frictionless, be in control of that journey. And as I found, I'm connected to our server and platform. And as I found on Christmas Day, whilst cutting turkey at 1:30, I was surprised that customers were booking service in MOTs on Christmas Day. Obviously, consumers transact when it's convenient to them. So yes, I can only see that increasing where you've got connected car technology and technical problem aspects of the vehicle, which will become fewer as vehicle technology improves constantly. Clearly, there's still going to be the requirement of the dealer expert teams in those cases. But in terms of what we're talking about today, taking vital market share from service and MOT, yeah, I can only see that increasing. I think one of our key partners, Karen mentioned earlier on, that has a lot of retailers. In fact, we just heard from their CEO recently. We are now taking, I think it's about 60% of all of their online bookings are coming through our platform. So yeah, in answer to your question, we can only see this increasing.
Okay. A couple of questions come in from Conor Lavery. One again raises the question of costs that many of the reasons customers are going to independents, but many would say it's cost. That cost is a main factor. I mean, I know as a service, franchise dealers can now compete on cost or certainly on value, can't they?
Tim, it's a great question, and I think I'm pretty certain I covered some of this in the video, which I think may be where Connell's questions come from. Secret Service offers consumers the ultimately streamlines the servicing schedule. So where, from a franchise retail perspective, we might have several other additional items added on to the headline price, the Secret Service price streamlines into 3 simplified RTS codes, in essence giving the consumer the comparison of value. So I think this allows us to compete with independents and fast fits, and gives the consumer transparency around the value of the service. So, which is specifically why Secret Service is delivering as it is today.
Okay. And the second one from Connell, I don't really understand this term, but Karen told me a while ago that they're getting a fire hose of data from their customers, but are struggling to turn this into insights for customers. Has there been any progress with the data management?
So I don't understand the fire hose of question either, but I can tell you that our reporting systems are actually the best in market. So when we're reporting on our return on investment, we're reporting on not just the volume of bookings and the type of bookings, but the final invoice values, what was actually booked, and what the return on investment is because of the final invoice value. So we're helping our partners to understand which departments are working best, which ones need to get rewarded with awards at the end of the year because they've got the best attendance rate. So there isn't an element of reporting that we're not providing. It's the best in market. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, thanks, Karen. A question from me, really. Robert Forrester talked earlier about the focus on older segments, and he also mentioned that since the first lockdown, there have been a number of dealerships nationally that haven't reopened. And really, this kind of potentially then leaves their customers to go elsewhere. So, what advice would you have, really, Gavin, for the dealers who remain in those territories? How should they be trying to win those customers who are free at the moment?
Well, interestingly, Tim, we're already at the end of last year and into this year, we're already working closer with some of our partners who've had dealerships closing within their territories, and they're looking to pick up that market share. Now, clearly, the consumers with their vehicles are transacting on our platform. So we call it our all mates facility. So where a franchise retailer is close to another dealer that closes that did have exclusivity, for example, then we can connect those consumers to their retailer if they want to take that market share. So that's already happening. We're already working very closely with some of our partners who've seen, unfortunately, dealerships closing, and clearly we're going to see more of that. As the harmonisation takes place of reducing the network over the next 3 to 5 years. Okay.
Just one last quick question. Talked about the market share. There's market share to be won. How can dealers ensure that's sustainable then in the long term? In my own experience, sort of watching the industry for the last couple of decades, it seems that as the new car market begins to peak again, that's taken all the attention from the dealers. So then the older car kind of sector tends to kind of slide a bit. So actually, what tip would you give dealers to keep that focus so these customers that they're going to win don't then go away?
Tim, very quickly, how long have we got to answer this question? Because I'm going to try and keep it short. Okay, right. So I think everybody can see, as you mentioned earlier, that we're going to see a reduction in franchise dealership in the dealership network as a whole. With that, I also think in terms of Future of Aftersales, we're going to see retailers retailing of vehicles move to, we've seen some opening in pop-ups in shopping centres and retail estate as well. I think we're going to see more authorised repair centres where aftersales is covered, potentially multi-brand, and has smart repair, cosmetic and body all on the same location. So I think more equipped out of town authorised repair facilities is the way that the future will go, and I think this allows us to keep the sustainability of improving after-sales market share in the future. So I think, as you rightly said, it's been cyclical, hasn't it? The new car market picks up, retailers are busy with new cars again, and I've certainly seen that. And then we struggle to maintain the sustainability of the older vehicle park, and it drops off again. I think the emergence of what the networks will look like of the future ultimately will give us the opportunity to retain the older vehicle park as we build larger multi-brand after-sales centres of the future.
Let's hope so. Fantastic. I'm afraid we're out of time there, but thank you, Gavin. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, audience, for your questions. If there's any more discussion you wish to have over the after-sales opportunity ahead, please do head to the Secret Service stand, which is in Exhibition Hall 1. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.